profitability right there. Okay? The other thing that happens, as I said, is that many practices, when they have this cash flow in problem, make mistakes. They borrow incorrectly. They don't pay down their debt. They get credit cards. Okay? They run their accounts payable up with the shell game. And they make mistakes on debt. Understand that why this practice has $215,000 in debt and the other one has 55 is not just the management of the debt, but the piling on of the debt. For example, they finance everything. Every piece of equipment is financed because of the cash flow issue. The problem comes in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it now, jump ahead, is what I call the 179 trap. And if I want to refer you, it's going to be prevalent. You're going to see it here in the increased debt. But if you take a look at, what page is it, Angelique?
13.
Page 13. This is what I call the 179 trap. Let's just assume, for the sake of argument, this practice financed $215,000 of equipment purchases. Now, what they probably did, because of the tax benefits that exist today, is they probably expensed that equipment over the last 3-4 years. That's why the accumulated depreciation, the expensing of this equipment, is gone. But now they got to pay for it. So if you look at this exhibit, what happens in year one is you took a huge tax deduction. Now, in the subsequent years, you must pay that loan off with no corresponding tax deduction. Now, that doesn't look too bad. You got $80,000, but what if you pile on to the next year and buy another $20,000, the next year another $30,000? This is what's happened with Practice B. So now they look at $215,000 of debt on equipment that for all intents and purposes has already been written off. So when you're financing, I understand that you can finance and you can write that equipment off under the code section 179 and get a nice tax benefit. But I want you to bear in mind that if you're properly managing your practice with your advisor, you're going to be aware that you're piling up these deductions in year one, and the piper's going to have to be paid in the next 2 to 5 years. And this is where people start running into serious cash flow issues. This practice, in the example I gave you, has to pay $55,000 this year in the current portion of long-term debt, okay, with no corresponding deduction. They already took it, and they just kept piling on and on. Practice A, being efficient, paid those debts down in a more appropriate and efficient manner, and is now only sitting with about $55,000 of debt, which makes a heck of a lot more sense. The other side of the coin is when you have higher debt, if you go down about on page, the revenue and expense statement, the interest expense, Practice B is paying a heck of a lot more in interest expense. Another shot to the bottom line. We talked a little bit earlier, too, about marketing and advertising. One problem and one concern I have with a lot of my practices is